Jersey's own Zach Gelb. Or maybe it's Pennsylvania. Anyhow, it's one of the two, I'm pretty sure. The Zach Gelb Show continues on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Crazy day of football yesterday in our market. Eagles with the big victory as they just thumped the Pittsburgh Steelers. No one could have expected the Eagles to blow out the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. And then for the Jets and the Giants, Jets, a lot of turnovers, and the Giants, just bad, undisciplined football with 11 penalties. Now joining us on the hotline, does a tremendous job covering the NFL for a very long time for Bleacher Report, and that is Jason Cole. Jason, thanks for a few minutes, and how are you?
I'm great. What's going on?
Nothing much. Appreciate the time. So the Eagle fans that listen to this show are in an exuberant mood today. We all know that from what they saw yesterday. And the thing I still don't understand and I don't have an explanation for is Carson Wentz is a rookie and Doug Peterson's a rookie head coach, but they're able to look so cool, calm, and collective. You've been covering the game for a very long time. How impressed are you with the Eagles, especially how rookies are able to look so confident with what they do?
Well, I think it's actually a statement about what Doug Peterson built, not just with Carson Wentz, by taking him at number 2 overall, but if you look at the coaching staff, I'm doing a little research here. They have 9 former NFL players, including Doug, on the coaching staff, and that's, I think, at least in the NFC, that's the second most of any team. So you have all these coaches around a guy who's like Carson Wentz, who can help this guy, help him guide him through what is the expectation of being at the NFL level, and also work with a guy who's to say, look, this is going to work, it's not going to work. We need to understand this is what he's capable of, this is what he's not capable of, because all those guys know what happens on the field. So I think that factors into it an awful lot. On top of the fact that Wentz is just, he has sort of this preternatural ability to stay calm. I mean, and we've seen it among a lot of these young quarterbacks or rookie quarterbacks. Prescott's been very impressive in Dallas. Garoppolo, not a rookie, but a guy coming in and playing for the first time, been very, very impressive there. I'm trying to think of the fourth guy. I know it's just escaping me at the moment. But there have been 4 of these guys who've been very impressive so far. Trevor Siemian in Denver in his second year getting some action. It's just really remarkable to watch how these guys handle themselves on the field.
And each and every week with Carson Wentz, in the first 2 weeks, you could easily just say, take it with a grain of salt. It's the Browns, it's the Bears. But every week, this is the Steelers, and I walk away more and more impressed because he's smart, he's a leader, he's accurate, and his footwork was impeccable. And you saw some of it yesterday to that big pass to Darren Sproles. Who does he remind you of? Who do you compare Carson Wentz to with quarterbacks that you've seen in the past?
Well, body type and willingness to take punishment. It's Roethlisberger's the most obvious one. So you see that. Now, Roethlisberger's still unique in that I've rarely seen a quarterback who's taken that much punishment who's lasted. So, yeah, that's a great thing that Carson Wentz, is a tough guy, big guy, and all those kinds of things. But the coaches are right when they tell him, don't do that. Don't make a habit of that, because more often than not, the defensive players are going to break you eventually. Let's not try and be like the outlier, and that being Ben Roethlisberger. Be more like one of the normal guys, because that's how you survive in this game long term.
No question, and also the protection in front of him is also a big key. And yes, the bye week you want to keep on playing, but with the impending Lane Johnson suspension and that appeal, I actually think this bye week comes at a good time because you could coach up that offensive line and try to figure out how you're going to coach these guys up, because life without Lane Johnson doesn't look too promising for the Eagles because he's off to a very good start.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough stretch of 10 games without Lane Johnson. There's no question about that, assuming that he does not win the appeal. And I've seen very few of these where the players win, but certainly Eagles fans can keep their fingers crossed. But history and responsibility tend to make you think that Johnson's going to lose this one. So I know they're going to have to do some shuffling on their offensive line. They do have some downtime here to figure out how it's going to work and get Wentz used to having new people in front of him. It's not ideal, however, and I don't think anybody would think that this is ideal.
I know it's only 3 games, and you don't want to overreact from 3 games, but last year it was clear the players did not like Chip Kelly. In the offseason, you go out and you bring in a Doug Peterson, and a lot of people in Philadelphia were questioning that move at the start. But you see that locker room yesterday, and you see how much that these players adore Doug Peterson, and that could change with the few losses. We all know that. But how important was it for the Eagles in the offseason to bring in a player's coach after going through what happened with Chip Kelly?
Well, I think it's really important. I mean, I knew Doug when Doug was a player. I covered him down in Miami. So Doug has an enthusiasm that rubs people the right way. I mean, and, a love, a passion for this. You could feel it when you were around Doug Peterson. And I think that while it's not the same thing, it's not as boyish as it was when he was playing, I think people get that. I think they get that he really loves what he does. And he wants to make it fun. And the thing that you've seen him do, which is really smart, is he has found roles for everybody, whether it's 1 or 2 plays like a Trey Burton or the guy's a centerpiece. And this is the art of really great managing. You see it in baseball, and I rarely do these parallels, but you watch Joe Madden when he manages the Chicago Cubs and when he was down with Tampa Bay. One of the things Joe Madden did is he made sure that his guys who were on the bench got into games on a pretty regular basis, would play, even if they were role players, they would play 2 or 3 games a week, and they knew that they were going to get on the field, and that would keep them hungry for those moments. And he still does it now. And I think you're seeing the same thing with Doug Peterson is he'll bring in, Burton as an example to do something, specific. He'll bring in somebody else to do something specific. He will find a major role for Sproles while also keeping Ryan Matthews as sort of the bell cow running back, even though that wasn't necessarily the case yesterday. And that's just really smart because it keeps your locker room happy. It's the old saying from Casey Stengel, and boy, am I dating myself here, is the art of managing is keeping the half of the locker room that likes you away from the half of the locker room that hates you. And what Doug has done is he's making sure that maybe 3/4 of the locker room actually likes him.
And yesterday, if you could have given me 100 guesses before the game, I would have never guessed that the Eagles would have held the Steelers to 0 touchdowns in that game. You talk about the coaching staff. Someone that's having a fantastic start in Philadelphia is Jim Schwartz. What's your explanation for the Steelers not scoring a touchdown yesterday? Because I still can't believe it.
Well, Marcus Wheaton certainly didn't help them. So, Schwartz is a great defensive coordinator. I still wonder about Schwartz whether he's going to make it, because I assume he's going to get another chance as a head coach. I certainly hope he does, because he's a really smart guy, and I think he can be a terrific head coach. I think he needs to sort of sand down some of the rough edges of being Jim Schwartz, and there are some rough edges to Jim. But look, he's as smart as you're going to get, and I think that this stint that he's going to have here, at least what they did yesterday, is a strong indication to anybody who's paying attention that you should be really looking at Jim Schwartz and saying, okay, what makes him qualified to be a head coach, and what do I need to make sure that I fix or cover up about him as a head coach as I go through the list of candidates, in the future. So I'm hoping that Jim, does that, but he's as good a defensive mind as I've seen. And I think the other thing about this, we talked about all the guys who are former pros on that staff, but also having a former head coach
very
on your
big
staff is a huge thing. I mean, you see teams that have multiple guys. You see Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. He's got, I think, 3 former head coaches in the NFL on his staff. That really helps. It especially really helps a young first-time head coach as he tries to navigate how to do this job.
We're talking to Jason Cole, NFL insider for Bleacher Report. So yesterday, let's get to the Giants. They lost their composure at a ridiculous amount of penalties, and the Richburg ejection, that was just something you saw a player not focusing on his job and just trying to get some retaliation from last year on Josh Norman. How about the Giants yesterday and how they just lost their composure and blew that game to the Washington Redskins?
Not pretty in any way, shape, or form. And you can't blow games like that. You can't blow games like that at home. I mean, the Jets did the same kind of thing earlier this season when they played against Cincinnati, that game that they should have won. Now, they didn't lose their composure in that game, but they had a similar thing happen that Darrelle Revis played so horribly against the Bengals in that game that it cost them. So this is a kind of, a glitch. You can't have glitches in games. You have to have control. You have to have composure. And this is a continuing problem. And it's a continuing problem despite the fact that you had a change in coaching staff. I mean, so it happened under Coughlin last year. It's happened under McAdoo this year. If I'm the owner, I'm sitting here and I would walk into my team and I'd say, what's it going to take to solve this problem so that I can help my coach make the solution? Do I need to get rid of some of you guys? What's the answer? Because you guys stopped playing like this in critical games because that cost us the playoffs last year in all likelihood, and it may cost us the playoffs this year. And I'm not generally in favor of owners getting involved, but when it's happened from coach to coach, I would say, if I was an owner, I would make it clear to the players that I'm going to empower my coach to do whatever I have to do to solve that problem.
Two-part question. Before the season started, who'd you pick to win the NFC East? And then after 3 games, who do you think will win the NFC East?
Who did I pick to win it? God, I don't know that I picked that division out, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to avoid the question.
That's fine.
I probably would have picked Washington because I like the offense that they put together. It hasn't necessarily shown up as much as you would think in the first 3 games. I still kind of like Washington as the best balanced team, but here's the thing. You can write the names of basically, especially with Philadelphia with their start. I thought that was the one team that wasn't going to play well because they had a rookie quarterback.
So did I.
You can write the name of all 4 of those teams, put it in a hat, shake up the hat, pull one out, and you get just as much chance that that's going to be right as any of the other 3. So that's how balanced I think the division is. It's the cliche, the classic cliche, who's going to get some injuries, who's going to hit a dry spell and not do well. But I don't think there's a huge gap between any of those teams, either in terms of their strengths or in terms of their weaknesses. I would say the Giants have been pretty impressive on defense, or at least they've been impressive faster than you ever would have thought, given the number of guys they brought in. And the same thing said about Carson Wentz, who's been fabulous so far. And you just wonder, okay, can either of one of those things maintain, especially as teams around the league look at Wentz and go, okay, here's what he does well, here's what he does not so well. Let's make sure that he does all those not so well things as much as possible.
And a big loss for the Giants. I know the timetable is up in the air, but it's going to be for a few weeks, if not longer, is Shane Vereen. How do they go about replacing Shane Vereen because he had a nice start to the season?
That's a difficult one because he's such a good receiver out of the backfield. Vereen's got really special qualities. Now, that doesn't make him a great running back, but it makes him sort of a terrific Swiss Army knife. That's how New England used him best, using him as a receiver sometimes, using him as a matchup guy when you were playing spread offense. There's no way you replace that talent. It's sort of like in Philadelphia. If you took Darren Sproles out of the lineup, you just wouldn't do those things anymore. So the things that Vereen was doing, you're just not going to be able to do them. You're going to have to do the rest of your playbook because you cannot replace what his talent level is.
Wrapping up with Jason Cole, NFL Insider for Bleacher Report. This is the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. I know we had a lot of concerns about Ryan Fitzpatrick going into the season because of his lack of a consistency at the quarterback position. Let me ask you this now, after seeing what you saw last week where he was very impressive against the Bills, and then when he throws 6 interceptions against the Chiefs, where's your confidence level on Ryan Fitzpatrick?
It's the same. I mean, I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. In the perfect world, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a highly paid backup quarterback. This is not the perfect world. This is where he's one of the 20 best quarterbacks in the league, probably toward the tail end of that. But that's the way it is. And you're going to have to ride or die with Ryan Fitzpatrick if you're the Jets, and unless the wheels come completely off. And that's just how it is. And your other options are not any better. Hackenberg is not ready. Bryce Petty is not ready. Geno Smith is not ready. And so we'll see if he can right the ship. But one thing I know about Ryan Fitzpatrick is he's got games like this in him. He'll throw 3 or 4 interceptions in a game. And one of the reasons he'll do that is he's got a little bit of John Wetland in him. So for your Yankees fans out there, remember John Wetland was the classic brain-dead heaver. He's going to go back there and he's going to throw it, and no matter what the result is, he's going to keep on chucking. That's what Ryan Fitzpatrick will do because that's what he believes in. He believes in his own talent. He'll keep on chucking back there. I'm not worried about him falling apart mentally.
Last one for you, Jason Cole. NFL Coach of the Year through 3 weeks. Belichick, Zimmer, Doug Peterson. Who do you go with?
Oh, come on, Belichick. I mean, Zimmer's.
I agree.
I don't know.
But some people, they don't give it to Belichick just because they expect this out of him. That's the argument against Belichick, which I think is ridiculous. What he's done right now is just remarkable.
Yeah, and Zimmer's done a great job too. You don't lose your quarterback and lose your star running back and not. So that's pretty awesome too. But Belichick's playing without Tom Brady, a four-time Super Bowl quarterback, and he's basically not played. He's played without Rob Gronkowski, who may be the greatest tight end of all time. I mean, good Lord, he's done some amazing things and gone on the road to beat Arizona. And I know, I mean, if somebody was to sit here and say it's Mike Zimmer, no doubt, I don't have an argument against Mike Zimmer. So I'm just going to say I'm going to go with Belichick because I never expected this. I expected them to do it with baling wire and string, put together a 2-2 start somehow, some way, and barely get by. Instead, they go to Arizona, they beat the Cardinals, a team that's very talented, and then they absolutely humiliate the Houston Texans and send them a message because the Texans are a team that thought they were going to be competing with the Patriots down the line. And that game is critical because it's a statement game to the Texans, and it more than likely means that the Texans are going to have to return to New England in January if they expect to get to a Super Bowl. Good luck in January for an indoor team in New England.
Is he the greatest coach of all time?
I don't know about that. He gets. I prefer to do it this way. I don't name. You know, if you're forcing my hand, yeah, I'm probably going to say it would be either Joe Gibbs or Bill Walsh, because Gibbs is the only coach who made the quarterback position a replaceable part, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah, and then Bill Walsh just invented the greatest system that you could ever imagine in the West Coast offense, and understood hierarchy of how the whole unit's supposed to work. And there's guys like Paul Brown, obviously, and Hallis, who are in that discussion. But Belichick deserves his place in that discussion. And I kind of look at it like this, when people ask me the greatest quarterback of all time, I'll go, yeah, it's probably Unitas, followed by Montana and Elway and Manning and Brady, and we'll put those all together. But if you said to me, sides, and I had the 5th pick, go ahead and take whoever you want with the 4 picks I had. I'll take whoever's at the 5th pick, and I'll be completely happy with it.
All right, Jason Cole, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
No problem. Take care. Thanks.